Over the past few years of drought in Victoria, community and rural sporting clubs have withered as their grounds have turned to dust. So the AFL has had to take what some might see as drastic action. It's considering allowing the use of synthetic surfaces to make them playable. Last year it teamed up with Cricket Australia and its insurers to commission a study into whether artificial turf might be a viable and safe option. The sporting bodies are now weighing up researchers' findings and are poised to deliver a verdict that could be the saviour for community clubs hit hard by the drought.
Sure. 132 450 688.
For the past 4 months, this team of human movement and risk management experts has been looking very closely at football fields right across the state.
Perfect.
It's their job to answer a question that 10 years ago would have been unthinkable. Can Australian rules football be played on fake grass? The number of once green ovals turning to dust has forced the AFL and Cricket Australia to entertain the idea. And the team from Ballarat University has been charged with working out if community grounds and the people who use them could trade in their drought-shrivelled fields for an evergreen playing surface.
We've measured grounds in the Wimmera through to Melbourne grounds, so obviously it's the MCG, so we've got a very broad cross-section. So we're looking for the artificial turf to be able to match an average standard of a ground, not the MCG, but something that's average.
If the drought continues, they might not have a choice. But if it has to happen, the governing bodies of each sport want to make sure their game will stay the same, that the ball will roll and bounce the same way, and that player contact with the ground won't change. So the tests include measuring impact forces, traction, shock absorption and skin abrasion.
So what we've set up is these blocks with, it's called a flexi-grid, it's an opsite, it's close to artificial skin, and we drag that across the surface by the hook here, across about a metre, just short of a metre, with a 20 kilo weight on top of it.
At an elite sporting level, there's money to maintain facilities like the MCG and Telstra Dome. But the continuing drought has left many community grounds in a desperate state. Current water restrictions permit councils to water just one ground out of 4. The rest are left to grow dry and dusty, causing seasons to be shortened and some competitions to be scrapped altogether. No water has meant no grass and no game.
This was a real community issue. This was something that was not going to go away in our view, and from all the information we could get, climate change was here, and we had to make sure that we could do anything to help our community clubs.
The AFL are trying to move pretty quickly on this to try and stay up to date. Also, potentially in community level leagues where the grounds are closed, they're going to lose those teams out of the leagues. So they're moving fairly fast on this.
Artificial turf has long been associated with sports like American gridiron and baseball, but in recent years it's become more commonplace in rugby union matches and on soccer pitches. Until now, there's been a reluctance to use it for Australian rules football. The team from Ballarat University has tested 30 different types of artificial turf against data from its natural grass trials.
So more torque for that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it means the spikes are going further into it.
Yeah.
They're getting caught in the bottom of it. Ready and go.
In part, researchers used FIFA-approved criteria for their tests, but also had to consider player movements that are unique to Australian rules football, like tackling and high-flying marks. The team had to determine if elements of the game would need to change if it's played on a synthetic surface and if players would be at a higher risk of injury.
There's no real injury data that is linked to measured ground conditions. There are some studies that assess grounds, is it hard or soft, yes or no, and those measures are just not sufficient to draw conclusions. So part of another study is looking at injuries versus ground conditions as measured with objective measures. So that'll potentially give us some good answers.
The samples tested by Ballarat University were provided by 3 separate companies that will no doubt be eagerly awaiting the AFL and Cricket Australia's verdict on artificial surfaces.
How many metres do you have now?
20.
Dandenong-based company Advanced Polymer Technology is one of them. It's been developing and manufacturing synthetic surfaces for over 20 years. One of its products will be used for the Olympic hockey fields in Beijing this year. But perhaps its biggest business boost has been the drought.
We see now with the drought situation that artificial surfaces become more and more accepted, and given the fact that the technology has evolved over the last 30-40 years, the surfaces that are now offered have nothing in common with the old type of surfaces where injuries, skin burn were the norm. Nowadays, fibers are soft, they are cushioned, so that even if you fall, the shock will be absorbed by the surface.
Having studied the best natural and man-made turf on offer, the team has come up with a standard set of performance guidelines they believe any synthetic football oval should meet. But just how the new technology measures up against the real thing will no doubt be hotly debated by players and fans alike.
If you've got the choice between a dirt ground and something that looks lush, I think players' perceptions will change. It's really untried in Australia, especially for Aussie rules.
We get passed through the study and accept the recommendations, and we do that within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I would have thought that within 6 months you'll be seeing some sort of venues being developed to that standard.